From David Bowie predicting the birth of Kanye West to the CIA writing a hit song to end a war, there have been many conspiracy theories related to music. So today I've gathered 7 of the craziest music conspiracy theories, starting off with the Paul is dead theory. Also, just to clarify, I'm not going to talk about any fake death conspiracy theories because there's basically one of those for every artist, so maybe I'll save it for another video. This is probably the most famous and well-known music conspiracy theory, and that is the Paul is dead theory. Some people believe that Paul McCartney of the Beatles died in a car crash on November 9th of 1966. The rest of the band wanted to cover up his death, so with the assistance of the British government, they found a look-alike to replace Paul and left clues in their music alluding to the truth that the real Paul McCartney is dead. The supposed look-alike is a man named William Shears Campbell. Supposedly, Mr. Campbell entered a Beatles look-alike contest in 1965 that was hosted by the Beatles manager in case one of his boys died. That sure sounds realistic, doesn't it? Well, it is kind of true since there was a lookalike competition hosted by a radio show in New York, but that was in 1968 and it wasn't hosted by the Beatles manager. But the story goes that William Campbell had plastic surgery, he went missing, and he took Paul McCartney's spot in the Beatles. However, this is one of the biggest stretches in the entire story because there's not even any evidence that this guy existed in the first place. Regardless, people love to point out how the original Paul and the fake Paul look different. Fake Paul has different ears, he's a different height, and he has green eyes rather than brown. After the Beatles broke up in 1970, many fans began digging deeper in their music because they knew no more music would come out. Many people began to notice that Paul McCartney was often different than the rest of the band. On the Abbey Road cover, Paul has his right foot forward while everyone else has their left foot forward, and he also isn't wearing any shoes. During the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, each of the Beatles were wearing red carnations, except Paul, who is wearing a black carnation. But one of the biggest pieces of evidence is on the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. There are many things on the album cover that conspiracy theorists point to as clues, like the flowers symbolizing a memorial, but the biggest one is when a mirror is held to the text on the front. It supposedly reveals a secret message that says 119 he die and has an arrow pointing to Paul. 119 is supposed to symbolize 11/9 or the 9th of November. On the back cover, Paul is the only one not facing forward, and George is pointing to a lyric that reads, Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock as the day begins, and November 9th of 1966 was a Wednesday. So people believe that Wednesday morning of November 9th on 1996, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr got into a big fight, so Paul left, he got into a car accident, and he died. Another piece of evidence for this is that on the album cover for Abbey Road, a Beatle sits in the back all by itself with a license plate that reads 28 if, meaning that Paul would have been 28 if he hadn't died, which is true assuming he died. And then there's a bunch more supposed clues within the music itself. At the end of the song I'm So Tired, John Lennon says this, but when it's played backwards, people interpret it as this. At the end of the song Strawberry Fields Forever, John Lennon mutters a line that apparently was the phrase cranberry sauce, but many people believe he said, I buried Paul. It doesn't help that the song is named Strawberry Fields because it was named after a veteran's cemetery that John Lennon grew up next to in Liverpool. Then on the song Revolution 9, when played backwards, it sounds like John is saying, Turn me on, dead man.
Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man.
There is way more lore to this story. Like for example, on the Abbey Road cover, Paul was holding a cigarette in his right hand even though he was left-handed, and I'm not going to get into all of it because there's just so much, but I explained the gist of it. So I'll conclude this section with Paul McCartney's take on this conspiracy theory.
And I showed up that day with sandals. It was so hot, and I kicked them off and walked across barefooted. So this started some rumor that because he was barefooted, he's dead.
Well, that was the idea. That was the other part of it, that there was a guy who looked like you taking your place.
No, well, this is him.
So for some reason, replacement theories are a common thing in the music world, and there are 2 more that I want to touch on. People believe that in 2006, Eminem died in a car crash and it was covered up by his label. And again, like Paul McCartney, he was replaced. This is probably the least evidence-backed replacement theory, and one of the key pieces of evidence is a Tom MacDonald song. On the song Cloned Rappers by Tom MacDonald, he said, if they can't control you, they erase the old you. They cloned Gucci, cloned Kodak, cloned Eminem. He ain't rapped since Encore. Know that. Beautiful lyricism. It doesn't help also that in 2015, B.O.B. went on a big rant about artists being cloned. So most of the evidence that backs up this claim is that Eminem's face either looks the same throughout his whole life, or sometimes other people say that his face looks drastically different. People also like to say that Eminem seemed to glitch on the Zane Lowe interview, even though he was clearly just trying to be funny. Also, of course, Eminem praised Jay-Z in a 2017 interview, and as we all know, Jay-Z is the face of the Illuminati. But another big piece of evidence supporting this theory is the fact that Eminem couldn't remember one of the music videos he was in.
Wasn't you on the beach running on that video?
Was I in that video?
Yeah, you was running on the beach. That was like your debut album.
I was?
You was running on the beach.
Why the
with
f do I
clothes
not
on?
remember?
You was running on the beach with damn near no clothes on.
What
That's
the f? Yo, you gotta show me that
You
because I
was
don't
Slim
remember.
Shady, cuz. You was like crazy
Right.
back then. Like real crazy. You don't remember that? Cuz you was running on the beach, cuz, in the video.
What? I don't even. What?
But most people in the comments are intelligent enough to realize M was probably just forgetful or he was on drugs at the time. It's safe to say that the Eminem replacement theory was essentially pulled out of thin air because he got older and looks different. Another artist that conspiracy theorists set their eyes on was Avril Lavigne. They believe that after the massive success of her debut album Let Go, the 17-year-old Avril Lavigne couldn't handle the fame and the attention, so she took her own life in 2003. Before doing so, she had a body double named Melissa Vandella, who was doing her meet and greets and all other press-related things, so Melissa took the place of Avril after she died. This theory spawned in 2011 on a Brazilian blog called Avril Esta Morta. Some of the evidence to prove she's a different person is differences in moles, birthmarks, and other facial features as well. She also had a promo picture taken with the word Melissa written on her hand, but it's likely she was just playing into the conspiracy. In the music video for Nobody's Home, there is something that flashes on the screen that says A+D, which people believe means Avril is dead. There's another point in the video where Avril 2004 flashes on the screen and then an X pops up. People think that means that she died in 2004, but in reality that's just the year that her album came out. Also in the video there are two Avrils, one wearing a wig demonstrating some sort of story, and the other is singing in a black dress, which people believe symbolizes the old Avril mourning and Melissa pretending to be the new Avril. But again, in reality, Avril is just telling a story in the video and acting out of character. But another big piece of evidence for this conspiracy is how Avril's voice supposedly sounds different.
What you yelling for? Lay back, it's all been done before. Yell out what you yelling for. Lay back, it's all been done before.
But in my opinion, that can just be explained by her getting older. The rest of the other clues aren't really worth getting into as they can be easily explained away and the conspiracy theorists have no proof. Most of the evidence for this theory is that she doesn't dress the same and does different things than she did when she was 17, but that's just growing up. The funniest part about this whole situation is the guy who made the theory on the Brazilian website said that it's fake and he made it up for his own reasons. Here's what Avril's had to say about the situation.
Yeah, some people think that I'm not the real me, which is so weird. Like, why would they even think that?
But a theory that's actually much more interesting in my opinion than the replacement theories is the David Bowie predicted Kanye theory. This theory suggests that the late artist David Bowie predicted the life of Kanye West and painted him as a successor of some sort. So in June of 1972, David Bowie released his album The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Quite the mouthful. The idea was that the character Ziggy Stardust was a messianic rock star, some sort of savior of the world.
So Ziggy was for me a very simplistic thing. It was what it seemed to be, an alien rock star. I dressed him and acted him out. I left it at that. But other people reread him and contributed more information about Ziggy than I had put into him.
But some people believe that some of the songs and the album cover actually predicted the birth of Kanye West. So in the cover, we can obviously see David Bowie sitting below a sign that says K West, which many people think is referring to Kanye. Bowie briefly commented on the artwork by saying, "People read so much into the K West sign, they thought K West must be some sort of code for quest. It took on all these sort of mystical overtones." So he never directly commented on people saying it was Kanye, but he did make it seem like there's no deeper meaning behind it. It turns out that the K in the sign stood for Kahn because Henry Kahn was the owner of the store, and West referred to the location of the building in the city. Then in the first song, 5 Years, Bowie sings about how there are only 5 years left until Earth ends because of a lack of natural resources. The idea was that Ziggy Stardust was the messianic rock star who would save the world. And guess who was born just 5 years after the release of the album? Kanye West was born almost exactly 5 years after the album was released. But it doesn't end just there. 2 days before he passed away, David Bowie released his final album, Blackstar. People like to think that this album was Bowie's way of passing the torch to Kanye for a variety of different reasons. One of the main reasons is because Bowie had apparently talked to a psychic in the late 70s who told him he was going to die at either 70 or 69, and Bowie passed away when he was 69 years old in 2016, so Bowie knew his death was coming. On the title track, Bowie sings, "Something happened on the day he died. Spirit rose a meter, then stepped aside. Somebody else took his place and bravely cried." Obviously, people think Kanye was the one who took Bowie's place. They They also point to the third song on Blackstar being titled Lazarus, which is a reference to the biblical story of Lazarus who was raised from the dead by Jesus after 4 days of being dead. Then on Kanye's 2013 album Yeezus, the third track is titled I Am God. So I guess theorists believe that Kanye metaphorically embodies Jesus and raised Bowie from the dead within himself. I'm honestly not sure how that correlates, but that's what everyone says. They also point to an interview Bowie did in 1974 with Rolling Stone where he says, "As soon as Ziggy dies on stage, the infinites take his elements and make themselves visible." And since Kanye was among many other celebrities who tweeted about Bowie's death shortly after it was announced, I guess that means Kanye is David Bowie's successor. And the final piece of concrete evidence is that David Bowie's final album was titled Blackstar, and Kanye West is literally a black star. So it really just seems like a bunch of coincidences with little correlation. This is a rumor that I'm sure most of you have heard, but it's that the famous musician Stevie Wonder can actually see. Now, apart from being known as an extremely talented artist and musical pioneer, he's also known for being blind. In fact, it's referenced in probably hundreds of rap songs, like Lil Wayne's fantastic line, "Don't want to be in the blind, but sometimes I Stevie wonder about her." But most of these rumors stem from the time in 2010 when fake Paul McCartney knocked over a mic stand and Stevie Wonder caught it. People caught wind of this and thought that Stevie was lying about being blind. There have also been a ton of celebrities telling stories about Stevie being able to see, or at least doing things that they don't think blind people can do.
I'm already in the building. I'm coming through the lobby. Door opens. It's Stevie Wonder. He comes in, says, "What's up, Shaq?" Presses the button. Oh, it's your story. Presses the button, gets off on the floor, buys something, goes to his room.
But there is a pretty good explanation for this. You see, Stevie Wonder wasn't actually born blind. He was born prematurely and had some issues during treatment, so he developed ROP, which is an eye disorder that permanently damaged his eyes. He rarely ever reveals his eyes, but as you can see in his 1989 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame acceptance speech, his eyes are severely damaged. It's likely that he may have some sort of partial blindness, but he's still legally blind. Blind people are also known to have other enhanced senses like hearing, smell, and touch, as it's the body's way of coping with not being able to see. He's even addressed the rumors before.
And tell them also, whoever's spreading a rumor around at any time, when it's not true, instead of you all paying them or whoever, give me the money so I can give it to my foundation.
So I highly doubt Stevie Wonder's been lying about being blind this whole time. A much more interesting and highly classified conspiracy theory is the wind of change theory. In 1990, just after the Berlin Wall fell, the German band The Scorpions released a song called Wind of Change. This song is one of the best-selling singles of all time. It holds the record for best-selling single by a German artist, and the song served as an anthem to the end of the Cold War. It's said that the lead singer Klaus Meine wrote the song after performing at the Moscow Music Peace Festival, the first rock festival allowed in Russia since rock had been banned for a while. Apparently, he was inspired by how much Russia was changing and how many fans the band had in the country. But some people think that this song was actually written by the CIA as some sort of psyop to aid the West fight against communism. One of the largest pieces of evidence for this theory is that Klaus never usually wrote songs other than a few lyrics here and there, but apparently he never wrote full songs. There's actually a whole 8-part podcast series investigating this theory called Wind of Change by a man named Patrick Keefe. The reason that he's so into it is because Patrick was told this story by his friend Michael, who was told by his friend in the CIA in the early 2010s. This is what happened when Michael tried to get this guy on the podcast.
Do you remember the story you told me like 10 years ago? Yeah, you know that Patrick and I have been utterly obsessed with this story for the past 10 years? Okay, good chat.
What happened?
He was just like, it's a felony. There's no way I can tell you this story on the record with my voice, anything. Like, I'll go to jail for this.
This podcast has been the main proprietor of this theory, and he has tons of interviews with ex-CIA people and others related to this story, trying to chase this theory. He even interviewed Klaus himself. One of their main arguments is that this isn't too far-fetched for the CIA to do, seeing as how the CIA has previously sponsored the production of the films for Animal Farm in 1984. I didn't sit through the 8 40-minute podcast episodes, but from what I've heard on Reddit, they don't have much other evidence apart from what I just mentioned. The majority of the podcast is just demonstrating how the CIA is capable and willing to do something like this. Many people on Reddit were disappointed by the podcast, saying they weren't able to provide any real evidence apart from the rumors. Klaus has made many comments about this theory, and in one of them he said, "Of course it's not true at all. It shows how powerful music can be. If they think this song was like a tool to help bring down communism, I mean geez, it just underlines in a heavy way, if that would be possible, the power of music. Klaus did say that he really likes the podcast and he thinks it's entertaining, even though the story isn't true.
It's a very entertaining and really crazy story, you know, but it's, like I said, it's not true at all, you know.
I've been thinking about making a whole video about musical propaganda, so let me know down in the comments if you want me to. And for our final conspiracy theory, we have another one related to the CIA, kind of. So we're going to close this video with one of the silliest conspiracy theories on this list, and that is that Rebecca Black's song Friday was actually about the JFK assassination. So for starters, the assassination of JFK was on a Friday, and the chorus, "Gotta Get Down on Friday," is obviously a reference to JFK being told to get down. Another lyric from the song is "Gotta have my bowl, gotta have cereal," and apparently that Friday JFK declined his presidential breakfast of eggs and sausage and bacon and toast, and he opted for some cereal. So I just fact checked this, and it looks like another lie that the conspiracy theorists are pushing. Apparently he did not have cereal that day. Ticking on and on, Everybody's Russian is clearly a reference to bombs in the Cold War and the USSR. The lyrics "Gotta Get Down to the Bus Stop," along with the bus stop being in the music video, have to do with a bill that JFK was going to sign the following Monday after he died that required public bus transportation for schools. That's why the bus never came in the music video, because he never got to sign the bill. I couldn't find any information online that he was planning on doing that, but for the sake of the theory, we'll assume that it's true. In the music video, Rebecca Black and her friends are in the back of a blue convertible, the same type of car that JFK was killed in. But the most damning piece of evidence is that in the pre-chorus, Rebecca Black sings "Kicking in the front seat, sitting in the back seat," and the name of JFK's driver on the day he was assassinated was Samuel Kickin. At least that's what the conspiracy theorists say. That's actually not true. The driver's real name was William Greer. So this theory is obviously very goofy, and I doubt 13-year-old Rebecca Black was writing about JFK's assassination secretly. Actually, she didn't even write the song, so maybe the real writer was trying to leave in a little clues for the conspiracy theorists out there. So if nothing else, this video just goes to show if you try hard enough, you can make an argument for anything and people will believe it. Let me know some of your favorite conspiracy theories in the comments below, whether it was in this video or not in this video. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. This has been Matty Balls, and I'll see you guys next time.